Hello everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I have two apologies. One is I'm not Phil Vickerman, and the second one is I've got way too many slides for 15 minutes. So this is going to be a bit of a canter through. I do apologise. I am Mark Askem. I'm the Associate Director of Estate Management. I'm really tasked with delivering capital improvements to the university over the next 5 to 10 years, delivering the master plan, which I will touch on very briefly. Sorry. I did engage with the faculty and most of the university when I first joined back in January, through January and February, and as an update on the master plan and how we were developing that. That was presented in March to the Board of Governors, where it was approved in principle, but we need to go back in September to answer some questions around overall affordability and how it fits within the 5 to 10 year financial strategy, which we are comfortable we will be able to do. In the meantime, we've been engaged in a briefing process with the faculty and all the various people who are identified for going into Copperas Hill. So I'll quickly run through what we've been doing basically since March. So our current campus is a disparate collection of buildings, about 44 in total. Iron Marsh doesn't even fit on the map, I do apologise, but it's noted there, Laird's likewise across the water. The master plan shows us disposing of a number of properties, including Iron Marsh. Laird's still question mark. There's a desire to bring it into campus. An exact location wasn't identified in the master plan and will be developed in various opportunities. Sports pitches I've fed back to the faculty in various environments. They don't fit onto Copperas Hill itself. They will be as an off-campus location to be determined, still being discussed and negotiated. So since March, we've engaged with all of the end users who are identified for Copperas Hill. Now, academically, that's effectively the faculty, this faculty, plus some people from sports and exercise science. There's a general teaching element. There's a whole element around student services, which include the library within that. So World of Work, Centre for Entrepreneurship, Academic Registry, and then other users, which is International Student Group, Student Union, food offers, wellbeing, gym, whatever facilities come under that banner, and then ESTES, which is meant to be estates. I do apologise. So we've engaged with all of those. These are the people within the faculty, just focusing on the faculty for a while, the user groups we identified and been talking to. So Phil, primarily organised through Kathy Gleig, who's given us an awful lot of information and then dealt with the various different schools below that. We've identified the size of the faculty in relation to the university, the size of the schools within the faculties, looked at potential growth figures in FTEs, tried to capture all of that. We've then done this very interesting exercise of trying to understand what an average student does within each school. This is just health. We've done this for each school. Trying to identify the time spent in general teaching areas. In this case, obviously 50% of their time is on external placements. How much time you spend in the specialist activities and locations. Now, we've captured it here. We know this is a generalisation, but it gives us an idea of how the peaks and troughs of uses at different areas occur. So we've taken that. We've then looked at specialist spaces. We've done it for all. I can't go through every school. We are going to feed this back to you on a school-by-school basis. And tried to look at how the current facilities, which fit into existing buildings, if we were starting from a blank piece of paper, how they might be better arranged. So some of the hospital wards, how they might be arranged differently, how the viewing galleries into the bedsit and into some of the social work environments might be combined to save space. The ambulance space, how that could be reconfigured again. So we've tried to capture all of those specialist spaces. We've put them into footprints in the most economic format that we believe we can. And I don't expect you to read these figures because they're quite scary, some of them. But the big sort of voice bubble in the bottom there basically says we do all that with your school, with the faculty, and with all the other users in the building, and we've got 8,000 square metres more than we've got space provided within our budget. So, panic? No. We kind of expected it insofar as when you ask people what they want and what they need, and we had it all separately, then it's always more than we probably expected. So what we did at the same time was discuss with you and try to understand how you actually work and how you're organised. And these bubble diagrams may look very simple or complex from your own point of view, but they kind of capture the various different activities. So you've got specialist spaces there, you've got central teaching provision, you've got this social learning area, which almost everyone says they want to provide for their students. I need to teach specially, and then I need somewhere that they can go and study privately. Now, when you're not part of a library or part of a bigger building, then you want that for yourself because your students don't want to just disappear into the ether. So this was education, professional learning, School of Nursing, likewise, similar sort of requirements, lots of specialist spaces, offices, and then this sort of heart and social learning area that people wanted. So then we put yours together into a whole faculty piece, which starts to simplify things maybe too much when you want to look at the detail. But what we got was a real feeling that there's a sense of identity needed for the faculty. Then within that, there's a sense of identity that was wanted for each school. But on top of that, there was definitely shared facilities and a desire to interact with each other. So you start overlapping some of the circles, and you sort of see that there's commonality between what everyone wants. Then also start to see that, there's research, PhD students, they want to be involved in the faculty, but they also want to be involved in a wider research environment as well. So there's external connections. There's sports facilities that are needed for this faculty, but they can also be shared by the wider university, sports health and well-being, and then there's connections with off-site sports facilities. You then put that into the whole of Copperas Hill, and you end up with a big jelly baby. Now, I could stop the presentation here because that's as far as the design for Copperas Hill has actually got. That is Copperas Hill in a nutshell. Thank you. 2 minutes, I'm really going to race through this. So you are the green circle. So you have an identity and a key person within the building. We need to provide general teaching facilities in the building, which is the red circle. Now, the quantum of that is a thing we need to challenge. The library is a huge area within the building, but then there's that big yellow splodge that runs through everything, which is this social learning environment, which everyone has asked for a piece of. You can see how sport interlinks with other areas, with sport, health and well-being, with a well-being gym potentially, but then that interlinks with also student advice and well-being and how that could be a centre in itself. So suddenly everything's morphing into one a bit, but still with its own home and identity. Now our challenge is, from that diagram, is to look at the overlaps and now understand that instead of just adding all the different silos together, how do we overlap them? How far can we overlap them? If we overlap them, does it become something different? Do you have the ability then to work differently because you've got access to wider facilities within the faculty? And that's basically the work streams that we're going through. So from those silos, we now need to work across all of those silos and say, okay, specialist spaces. To be honest, apart from the library, which is a huge area for books, which is specialist, your specialist spaces we're feeling reasonably relaxed about insofar as we understand what they are, and from some of the conversations we've had, I think we've been able to make them more flexible already, just by understanding how they might work differently. Offices is an area we need to look at and how they're arranged. General teaching is a big area, and how much general teaching space we put into this building. Your faculty's requirement for general teaching space is actually quite low compared to some others. So, but there's a desire to put more general teaching here so other faculties come and use it, so it doesn't become just your building and a library. It is a general teaching provision. Then there's this big challenge over open access IT and self-directed study areas. At the moment, we have roughly, in a library, we have 1 study space per 13 as our current provision, and there's an aspiration to go to 1 in 7. On top of that, there's a 1 in 7 provision for open access IT, which suddenly that's almost doubling or 4 times the current provision we've got. Now, we know we need to increase it, but that sounds, those headline figures, whilst seem right in some theory papers, probably sounds an awful lot of area we need to challenge. So I'm now going to quickly run through some images to give you an idea of what it might look like. This is the only really sexy one I've got, which is a master plan, and that just shows how the areas we're involved in and how Copperas Hill is bang in the middle of everything there, with a lovely new green park next to it, everything cleaned up and Liverpool looking lovely after I've finished my job, which is very easy to do. Copperas Hill itself, I'm going to quickly run through the thought processes. This isn't the design, this is just some thoughts on how we might develop it. So Copperas Hill, people I think hopefully know it. It's a big, big building with big spaces. Now that, for the biennial someone was mentioning earlier, is a great space for that, and it has its own attractions. A lot of people hate it. So you go to step 2, well, you start carving areas out of it to create a heart and a social centre for it. Still a little bit dull. You could open it up and split it into 2 buildings, 2 for the price of 1, maybe not. But you could divide it differently at an angle by putting, instead of just putting a straight vertical hole, you sort of stagger that down. You then sort of move into possibly learning terraces and a way of working through, a logical way of working your way through the building. That way, logical link through the building could then link the external green park to a potential garden on the roof and connectivity. It leaves you the corners to become beacons and signposts to the university, and we can make landmarks features out of them. There's a potential to put another building at the end, currently identified as Centre City. We've got a grant funding bid in for that at the moment, which could be another sort of gateway into the Knowledge Quarter. A confusing drawing, I know, but that kind of captures all of that. So it hopefully starts to make you think that Copperas Hill can look different to the concrete bunker it currently is. Cutting and carving it, there's room in there to put large lecture theatres on the noisy side where we can seal it and have this side open for smaller areas looking onto a park environment which is slightly quieter. And on the south-facing sunny side, a central atrium, roof gardens, they're all feasible within our budgets at the moment. You can see there as putting mezzanine floors in some areas to reduce the volumes of space, while opening up others to create, say, large dance studios and large lecture theatres. This was the sketch of the architect who has now been appointed, which is BDP, who we've been working with. So they're going to carry on with the design process with us. This is, you can see a logical way up through that terrace of steps. It won't look anything like this, I can almost guarantee it. But I hope that it gives you an idea that it isn't just going to be a big concrete box that it currently is. This is achievable, but I can almost guarantee it won't be that. It will be something else. I'm very nervous of putting images up in front of you because you'll have this now until the next time I see you, and I'll show you something completely different. But hopefully it's exciting insofar as it's going to be a great building. It is a unique building, I think, in higher education, and I think it'll be a landmark building for Liverpool and the Northwest, if not globally. The kind of stuff we're trying to do in there, making such a huge central library and all the student-facing facilities, and also opening up to the wider general public as well, I think is really exciting and something very different for us to get involved in. I think that was all of the slides just about. Thank you very much.